Yeah. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody. Gaz Williams here. And just checking I am indeed streaming, which is always one of those things. Because this is just going to be a very short show tonight. It's going to be just really to talk about a video that I'm going to premiere for tomorrow night. So tonight being let me just I'm discombobulated as per usual. Hang on, let's have a look. Okay, right. I thought I thought I'd scheduled a stream for a few more minutes, but it looks like I'm streaming now, so I may as well run with it and see how we get on. Okay. Hello. Hey. Okay, great. Okay, this is a very, very short announcement, really. I was on Sonic Talk earlier, and I was talking about the film that we made of last week's Rack Records launch. Now, this is the new record label that I'm involved with Mr. Steve Davis, and we've just launched. We launched last Friday, but we had a launch event on the Thursday, and we filmed that event, and I've been editing it and it's ready, but I'm going to premiere it not tonight, but tomorrow night. And the reason for that is I want to make a few last minute changes, but also it would be in exactly a week ago, and I'm going to release the two concerts that we made. We did two performances, one at 8:30 tomorrow night. That's GMT, and then the other one will be at 10 o'clock tomorrow night after it, and that will actually be exactly a week after those performances happened at exactly the same time. So that was the idea. So I apologize. I did say on Sonic Talk earlier that I was going to play the films tonight, but decided I want to hold that back until tomorrow. And also it'll allow me to make a little bit of an announcement about it, because this concert I think was really, really interesting. I'll talk about it now just to explain what happened and to prep you for tomorrow night. If you can watch it, I would love that very much, because so Rack Records, the label, we've got this we've got a motto, really, which is spontaneous electronic conversations, and the label is about trying to capture these raw, largely unedited conversations. So we thought for the album launch we should try to recreate that in some way for the audience, and the way that we did that was we invited 6 other musicians to join us. A really brilliant caliber of musicians joined us. I'll talk about those musicians in a moment, and everybody's name went on. Well, we had we actually had a bingo caller who drew out who if I was more organized I'd have this video, but we drew out numbers, and then those numbers were assigned to one of the 8 musicians who were taking part. So player 1 in this case was Nina Richards was player 1, and then player 2 Ben Chilton, etc. So everybody was when a number came out was assigned a number from 1 to 8, and then that meant that that would determine where they played in the concert. So players 1 to 4 would play the first hour, players 5 to 8 would play the second hour, and player 1 would play for 15 minutes, leave the stage. Player 3 would enter and take over from player 1, and then player 1 would return at 45 minutes to play with player 4. So everybody plays for half an hour with player 1, splitting their performance as a sort of to top and tail. So drawing a number 1 was quite an interesting thing. So we had Nina perform twice, and then we did the same then for 5 to 8. So tomorrow night then at 8:30 will be that first 1 hour performance. Then we had a half-hour interval, so we'll have a half-hour interval as well, and then the second performance then will be at 10 p.m., which was players 5 to 8. I was player 7. So yeah, which is great. And actually Steve was player 8. So yeah, so the way it went then was by being drawn out, you just didn't know who you were going to play with, and you got to play with two people as well. And we tried to make it totally continuous as well. So when player one's time, first time, 15 minutes was up, player three was ready and immediately took over with player two. I hope this makes sense. Um, just going to check in. Oh, hello, chatties. Mr. Spoon in the chat room. Mr. Spoon was one of the was one of the performers last week. Fantastic, and thank you very much for taking part. So our performers, then I should mention then. So Nina Richards, who was player one, she builds modules. She the Acid Stepper module. And she I performed with her in a similar thing that we did for a few months ago at Synth East, where there was a similar draw, but it wasn't a continuous performance. So Nina was player one, and player two was Benjamin Chilton, who uses the name Life is Feedback, and Ben is familiar to people in the synth scene because he is one of the mainstays at Elevator Sound. Very knowledgeable, very cool guy. So brilliant to have Ben involved. And then player three was John Doran, which that was a real thrill because John is the editor of The Quietus, and The Quietus is and founder, I believe, or certainly co-founder, one of Britain's, well, I'd say the world's leading websites about underground music. Really phenomenal job The Quietus has done. So to have John involved was fantastic. And then player four was Robin Vincent, obviously very familiar to a lot of us in the synth community, and also the man who put on the Synth East event. So it felt good and proper to have Robin join us, which is great. So those are the first four players, and so you get this interesting thing then of it being a continuous performance. So the music moves through these changes and the audience were introduced to everybody. So the audience was kind of familiar with everybody by the time they get, to a degree. So so when they came on stage, the audience were kind of aware of the whole process of what was going on. So yeah, so we filmed it, and that's going to be showed. I'm going to premiere that tomorrow. Then, as I say, at 8:30 and at 10 p.m. So hopefully some of the other performers might be able to join us as well. So in the second batch of numbers, then player five was indeed Mr. Spoon. So Mr. Spoon got to perform twice. Then player six was Mike Bourne, and Mike was brilliant from the band Teeth of the Sea, and Teeth of the Sea have really established underground sort of kind of often as a band, but they work in different medias, and very creative, and they're on Rocket Recordings, which is the same label that Steve's band, the Utopia Strong, are on. So having Mike, really super talented, very, very skilled musician, join us was a real thrill. So he was number 6, I was number 7, and Steve was number 8. Yeah, so that's kind of, so I actually got to perform with Steve, which was great because me and Steve play together a lot. So so it felt really nice actually when the stint I was doing with Mike finished, and Steve, it just felt completely familiar because playing with Mike was very different. So it was, I really enjoyed that. I got to, and then Steve got to play, of course, with Mr. Spoon. So, so I think what was really nice was that this event really felt very true to the setting up purpose of Rack Records and what we intend to do in the future. So a few people have been sending me or getting in touch with about their music and to see if we'd be interested with the new label. But as I say, the label really is more about capturing these conversations, and we want to create opportunities for these to happen. So one of the things that we wanted to do with the concert last week was release it on the day of the launch. Um, so that was great. We managed to put it out then on the Friday on the Rack Rock Records launch day. We put the launch concert out, um, and so I really enjoyed that. That felt like going from making this really unusual thing happen, and then for it to be almost immediately available to everybody. Feels like, yeah, our mission, our Rack Records mission, it feels very much part of. I'm just going to check in with the chat room. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm only going to stay on for a short while. I will I will keep mentioning about the premiere tomorrow night at 8:30 and at 10 p.m. So I'll be in the chat room for those concerts. And thank you. Thanks everybody for oh yeah, just catching up with chat. Hello everybody. Thank you. Nice to see so many of you. Yeah, so I'm not going to stay on much longer. I did want to do something where I was going to play some clips, but something with the StreamYard and YouTube live streaming, there's an error, and there's some, I don't know, they might have had a falling out or something. So then I was thinking, this is a bit of a lowly show tonight because I've got nothing, just words for you. But yeah, so tomorrow, if you would be so kind to maybe, if you're free and can join for the live premiere, that would be great. But otherwise, maybe catch up with it some other time. I'm really pleased with the concert film that we've got. So it's filmed really nicely, and there's some great visuals. Yeah, so I'm just really happy to be able to share it, really. But just want to come back to the whole kind of rack records and having like some sort of philosophical underpinning to what we're trying to do. I think it's for me, it's really challenging where I've been overly perfectionist with sort of music production and really trying to refine things in this way that I don't think a lot of the time makes an awful lot of difference to the end thing. Someone will like it more or less as it is, and if you tidy it up and spend ages, they're not going to really. If they don't like it, if it's not their thing, then just spending months tidying it up is not going to help. It's almost like people just like something as it is, or they don't like it, so it's a funny one. But I feel really quite liberated though by this idea of not letting you get your grubby hands on things, capturing it well, and without clipping, and in decent quality, and then essentially put that out. Maybe just trim away a little bit of it, take some sections of it, but that's it. So the computer doesn't get its, you don't get into that world. You just go. So well, what we say at the Rack Records thing is in the manifesto is minimal editing. So, there's a little bit of wiggle room within minimal editing, but the idea is that you make it, and that's what people get to hear, whatever happened, warts and all. So leaving mistakes in, and a lot of people just won't want to listen to music like that, and I get that. It is a big ask, but at the same time, I think when you do put this music on, maybe more as ambient or background kind of thing, it does create very unique places, spaces, and it's interesting. I do think it's quite an interesting sound. A lot of the time when you do these kind of jams, it's very difficult to do things particularly harmonically or melodically, or thematically, that's one that's really hard to do, to go back to something that you introduced earlier, you know. It's the modular thing tends to just be constantly changing. It just changes and changes and changes. And there's so many things that you change that there's no recall for. So to actually go back to something is quite difficult with that sort of particular way of making music with modular. But that's the kind of music making that I'm loving more than any music making that I've possibly ever done, certainly on my own. But when I mean, many of you, I've shared a lot of the journey that I've been having with modular, although not so much in recent times. But in the last year, it's what I've been focusing literally my life on, and spending many, many, many hours, well, daily, as much as I can, in just trying to, trying to get those 10,000 hours in. I got a long way to go yet, but at the same time, I can feel progress, and I'm inspired as well. I'm regularly very inspired, and I do want to share some of these discoveries. So this channel, which has been a bit dormant lately, is going to start getting a bit more lively again, hopefully. And yeah, I'd like to share a lot of the things that I've been finding, really, because I shared a lot of my fumblings and bumblings at the beginning, but now, having made a bit of progress, I think I'm duty bound to share some of what I've discovered. But some of you may have seen, I was on the maths web stream yesterday, as part of the launch of the Play Fader from Go Play All Day, um, and that's something that I think it's a super exciting instrument. So yeah, so I'd like to do more content about that as well. Anyway, I feel like I'm waffling. I've gone on plenty long enough. So the point of tonight's video is just to sort of announce, well, to talk a little bit about the concert and the form of it, but really to talk about, well, to tell you about the premiere tomorrow, Thursday, so yeah, 8:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. Okay. Any questions before I go? Thank you so much. But yeah, thanks for joining me on this little chat. And yeah, well, hopefully see you tomorrow. But I'll give the chatties a moment if there's any questions before I go. But yeah, thanks ever so much. Yeah. Okay, I'm going. Yeah. Okay, great. Perfect. Thanks, Mr. Spoon. So yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye.